Hi, I'm Melissa, and I have a story about a Cold War spy who really made waves.
And I'm Billy, and this story is your beeswax. Got it.
Hi, I'm Chris, and this is the story of Terror in the Waters off the Jersey Shore 60 years before a best-selling book became one of the biggest blockbuster movies of all time.
Wow, what does all of this have to do with our topic, beach? Find out in this episode of History Bluffs. Hello and welcome to another episode of History Bluffs. It's where truth is stranger than fiction. And to start off the show, please welcome to the stage, it's me, Adam, your host. I will be operating lights and sounds. There's no lights. I'm operating all of our sound effects and transitions, and I'm going to keep this game show together. Welcome to History Bluffs, and I'm not going to waste any time at all. I've introduced myself. Let me introduce all of the historians. We have, we have with us, we've got Melissa, we have Chris, and we have Billy, the philosopher. Welcome to the show, everybody. All right, so what I'm going to do is, for anyone, in case they've never seen the show, I'm going to talk about how it goes real quick. This is a history-themed comedy game show. You're going to learn one thing, you're going to learn two things, but then the third thing is going to be a complete and utter bluff, as per the title of the show. So the way the game works is we're going to do this, each historian here surrounding me, and actually let me put them back over to the side. These historians have all come up with stories from history. Two of them are real. One of them is a bluff. And you're going to hear those stories unfold over 3 rounds. We're going to give each person a chance to speak over the 3 rounds, and they're going to kind of try to pick each other's stories apart and find where the truths and bluffs are. Now, keep in mind, the ones who are telling the real story, they have hunted through all of history to find stories so unbelievable you're going to think that they're the bluff. And the bluffer, of course, is going to try to tell you a story that is just convincing enough to pull the wool over your eyes and convince you it's truth, so that they can get away scot-free and win the game. And this is a game show, so let me go ahead and introduce some rules. I've got a rules card here. So here's how it goes. The historians are inspired by our topic. And our topic, of course, as we mentioned at the top of the show, is beach. And 2 of the stories will be true and factual, and the bluff story is fictional. And when I say fictional, I mean, of course, if it takes place in North America. We all know North America exists. We're not going to deduct points for that. But the main narrative of that bluff is, in fact, a bluff narrative story. And finally, if the audience at home is playing along in the chat, because we stream on Twitch and YouTube and other online resources, please don't give away the goose in the story. Well, they're telling their stories. The historians don't want to be told, oh, I was there and I remember this and it's not true. We don't want to hear any kind of spoilers. So let's see. So real quick, let's get to know the historians just briefly. Melissa, welcome to the show. So Melissa, we're talking about beach today. So just real quick, what's your favorite thing to do at the beach?
Oh, real quick, favorite thing to do at the beach? I like to walk on the beach. I'll walk real far. I don't know.
It's a very so Fozzie Bear answer.
I was
or Pac-Man. I thought Pac-Man. Yeah.
It could be She's chasing ghosts down the beach. The ghost of beachgoers past. That's fantastic. Yeah. It is. Chris, what do you like to do at the beach?
Well, it's funny for me. For this year, I'm actually getting ready to go back up to New York for a high school reunion this summer. Oh. And when I think of beach this year, I think of high school gatherings at the beach. And it was kind of it was kind of a big deal to go hang out with with the crowd at the beach because it was a place to be seen and and hang out and have a lot of fun. So that's kind of what inspires for me this year is
all right.
Timing wise, it makes me think of high school.
Oh, I can't wait. You're going to feel just like the old days when the police chase you out of your booze and bonfire. It's going to be great. And of course, Billy, what do you like to do at the beach?
Well, I like to be honest with everyone,
Okay.
so not going to the beach would be my favorite thing to do at the beach.
Fair. It's Florida.
Guy, not.
Oh.
I go because my fiance loves the beach, and I
Well,
love her. So
That's
to the beach.
that's lovely. I think that's a great reason to go to the beach. Yeah, it's terrible. In Florida, if no one's ever been to the Florida beaches, the water is beach bath warm, and the sand is on fire.
Yep.
So that's my favorite thing to do at the beach is to run across the hot sand, get into the water, and then get muddy on the way back and wonder, why am I at the beach?
Yep.
Though I'd like to parasail. But that's enough. Okay, well, now we know everything there is to know about you three humans in your entire life. You've completely demonstrated that through the answers to that one question. Thank you. So I think it's time. Let's see. We've gone over the rules. We know our historians. We know the topic is beach. And we know how the game works. I'd be remiss not to bring up the Round Tracker 9000. This helps me and the folks watching at home to know where the heck we are in this game. So we're going to have those lights light up as we go through the game, so we all know where we're at. And as you can see, the first chunk of that round tracker is round number 1. So we're going to get right to round number 1. Here we are. We've got a brand new round. We're starting fresh. So the first round is 75 seconds of time. So each of you will get 75 seconds to tell the first of your 3 parts of your story. And I'm going to go from top down here. Melissa, you've got the top spot, so I'm going to put you into the hot spot. And your round 1 is going to begin right now.
All right, so it's the summer of 1969, and tensions are at an all-time high between the Soviet Union and the United States. And the CIA is launching all of these covert operations to get intelligence, right? So one of these operations, one of the many, is one that took place in Cuba, and it was called Operation Sunset, to get intelligence from Soviet defectors, essentially. And the person who was in charge of this was named William Dyson. He was originally from Maryland, and then he spent time actually close by in Tampa and joined the U.S. Air Force. He had a University of Florida connection, and then he became involved in CIA casework. Now, his job was to meet defectors on Playa Girón in Cuba, which is on the southern coast. And it was this secluded beach, and it had lots of sandy areas and lots of rocky areas. And specifically, he wanted to get intelligence about nuclear capabilities that the Soviet Union had at the time. And most of these meetings went pretty well, but there was one that was a little bit of a close call.
All right, a close call. That's a good entry to round number 1. So we're gonna get some input from the other 2 historians and see where they're starting to feel about your Operation Sunset story. Let me start with Billy. Billy, give me your 2 cents about the first round offering from Melissa.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking 1969, we're talking about the summer of 1965 from famous Canadian artist Bryan Adams, I believe is his name. So I don't know about this. I don't know about this Cuba business. It has nothing to do with the summer of '69, in my opinion.
Okay, fair enough. We didn't have enough Bryan Adams in there, so okay, very good. Chris, what's your take?
All right, my take is the thing that popped out at me was the name Operation Sunset, and William Dyson is the American spy in question that Melissa is talking about. So we'll see if rounds 2 and 3 she gives us some more information or about Dyson, or if the truth is going to be sucked away in the second and third round.
Oh, sucked away. There it is. It's okay. We'll forgive that one.
Vacuum.
Yeah. Hey. All right. Well, Melissa, thank you for that. And now up to bat with a whole different story. We're going to bring Billy into the square. And Billy, the same rules. Round 1 is 75 seconds. And your 75 seconds begins right now.
Okay, so bring us back to America. We're going to go to the Pacific Northwest. I hope I'm pointing the camera the right way. And I'm going to take you to Oregon or Oregon, depending on how you want to pronounce that word. But we're going to talk about Oregon's north coast, which is a stretch of sand and cliffs, which is known as the graveyard of the Pacific, mainly due to all the shipwrecks that come up and all the treasures and whatnot that wash ashore. In fact, that is, to be said, what inspired Steven Spielberg's movie The Goonies, because that is set in Astoria, Oregon, I believe. So, yeah, even Steven Spielberg knows about the Pacific Coast. So we're going to talk about beeswax, which goes back to my opener. This story is your beeswax, if not none of your beeswax. For generations, hunks of beeswax have been washing up on shore. Oral history going back to the tribes of the Nehalem Tillamook and the Clatsop tribes, and also journals from Lewis and Clark themselves have written documentation or oral of the presence of beeswax on the shores, which is not native to America, as honeybees are not native to America.
All right. Thank you for that first entry in your story. Okay. Not too bad. You already won me over with Goonies, so I'm already on your side, but I don't count. So let's hear from your other historians about their input. Melissa, what's your thoughts on the Pacific Northwest so far?
Yeah, so we had the Goonies, we got Lewis and Clark. Seems like you're really exploring the area pretty fully. But then the thing that kind of made my ears buzz just a little bit was the kind of mentioning of bees at the very end there. And so now I'm like, yeah, just a little bit of a shift.
That's true. A little buzz there.
Melissa.
I can't wait to hear how bees come into play with this. Chris, do you have any comments on the birds or the bees?
Just a couple of quick things for me. Billy referenced the movie Goonies, as you pointed out, Adams, and based on the first couple of facts that he put out, the movie that came to my mind for his story so far is simply Nerds. And then we'll see if his take on the graveyard of the Pacific, if it is believable, or if by the end of the rounds, all three rounds, Billy's story will be 6 feet under.
Okay, I'm going to give you the trombone on that because the show 6 feet under takes place up there. I presume that one missed me. Okay, don't explain your pun. I don't want to.
Graveyard of the Northwest.
Give it. Oh, see, I didn't even catch that. Okay, thank you for explaining it. I assumed you meant the show 6 feet under, which is a good show. All right, well, we've got 2 dots lit up for round 1. Chris, you know what? Speaking of 6 feet under, you are under the other 2 historians, which means you are the last to go in this first round. So I'm going to put you on the board now. You have a whole different story from history to tell us, and you've got 75 seconds on the clock, which starts now.
All right. I'm going to also stay in the U.S. As Billy did, but I'm going to jump to the other coast. And it's 4th of July holiday weekend in 1916, Beach Haven, New Jersey. What would become known as World War I was raging in Europe. A native of Philadelphia named Charles Van Sant decided to take a quick swim outside his hotel before dinner. The 25-year-old man swam from the shore with his Chesapeake Bay Retriever loyally paddling alongside him. Within just minutes, a dark fin appeared in the 3.5-foot water, and a shark chomped on Van Sant's left leg. Van Sant let out a blood-curdling scream. Many people jumped around to try to help him as the white waves there turned red from his blood. Other beachgoers formed a human chain and tried to tug him to safety, but the shark had a hold of his leg. It did not let go until its belly hit the rocks in the shallow waters right near the shore. So the shark finally let go of his leg. The rescuers were able to get him out of the water. They carried him, the very badly injured Van Sant, into the lobby of the plush Ingleside Hotel right next there, where he bled to death. The responding doctor recorded an unheard of to that time cause of death, a shark bite. And we'll hear more in round 2.
Wow, we've got a shark bite. All right, blood in the water. Let's do this. Let's talk about the dark shark. I was trying to scribble notes. My notes are amazing. Like swam, dinner, shark, fin, chomp. That's what I got. Melissa, what did you get for notes, and how are you feeling about it?
Yeah, I'm struggling with the idea that it was an unheard of death. Like they just thought that the sharks were fine, like that nobody could die from. Like it's an unheard of thing. Yeah, no, this story has teeth though, like with the action. I will say.
right.
So props for that.
All right. Well, how about you, Billy? You feeling? Are you feeling the grip of the story?
I feel like he bogged us down with details that didn't matter to the story. World War One, Philadelphia, Jersey, this and that. Shark attack. That's the main plot. And all I know is, I guess, a chain of human beings almost lost to one shark in a tug of war match.
That's true. That might be the most important part of the story, or it was the dinner. What were they eating? I don't know. Well, we'll have to wait till maybe round 2 to find out.
Leg of human was for
Leg of human. It's a delicacy. Well, as you can see, if you're watching, and if you're not watching, I'll tell you, the 3 dots for round 1 are all lit up, which means it is now time to go to round number 2. All right, we are at round 2, and round 2 is different from round 1 in that it came after, and it is also 15 seconds shorter, so you're only going to have a minute this time, 60 seconds on the clock, to tell your round 2 contribution of your story. And yes, round 3 will get even shorter, but we're not there yet. This is round number 2. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go back to Melissa, to the summer of '69, and we're going to learn some more about Operation Sunset. Are you ready for this round, Melissa?
Very ready.
Okay, here we go. You've got 60 seconds on the clock, starting now.
All right, so these meetings had been going pretty, without incident until one night when he was meeting someone by the name of Dmitry Ivanov, which comes from his book that he wrote later, and I'll get to that later. So could have been his real name, could have, maybe not. But anyways, he's meeting this defector in Cuba, and they always met after sunset, hence the name of the operation. And as they're meeting, there was a fishing boat kind of like out at sea, and so they actually buried the microfilm because the information was on microfilm at the time. They buried the microfilm and hid in some mangroves for a little bit until they felt like the coast was clear. And then they were able to retrieve the microfilm and got the information. So that was the most incident that happened. Now you might be thinking, okay, if this guy was such a hero with getting information and such a great spy, why don't we know about him? Well, he actually had a change of heart, and you'll hear about that in part 3.
Yes, we will. I want to hear more about the mangroves and the and the microfilm. This is great. It's got all the spy stuff. Let's see, Billy, what do you think of the mangroves?
Oh, don't like mangroves. What I really don't like, though, is this Dimitri character. You said could have been his name, could have not been his name. Are you lying to our faces, Melissa?
Are you insinuating she might be bluffing?
Are you the spy?
Oh,
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Well, all right. Them some fighting words, Chris. You got fighting words? Or do you like it? Do you believe it?
Sort of, kind of. I also, focused on this Dimitri fella. And I imagine if he was here in this conversation and we said, hey, we wanted to hear more, he would say, I'm enough. I'm enough.
Where do you come up with this stuff, Chris?
Right out of the words, right out of the mouth of Melissa. She said, Dimitri, I'm enough.
I have a theory. That Chris is not even paying attention to the narrative at all. And he's just looking for like some kind of ridiculous wordplay to come up with this stuff between. Chris, do you know where the fishing boat was? Do you even know? All right. I don't think you do.
Off the mangroves, right off the mangroves.
Sure. Somewhere out there. All right.
But near the beach.
Chesapeake Bay.
Chesapeake Bay. Okay. All right. Well, enough about that. We're going to go straight to you, Billy, for the round number 2. So again, the clock is tighter. You've got 60 seconds to give us your next chapter in the story of Oregon and the Goonie Coast. Your time begins now.
Okay. So we last talked about the oral history, but in July 2022, they found more evidence to pinpoint where all this beeswax has been coming from. They found actual timber or wood of the ship that was carrying this. That is the, oh my God, Santo Cristo, a 17-foot galleon or 17th century galleon from the Kingdom of Spain, which would often trade with Asia with fine silks and whatnot, and sometimes things as beeswax, because the Catholic Church, to make their candles, it needed to have beeswax in them. So that was a common trade route. And if you know geography, Oregon and Asia sharing the Pacific Ocean explains with a tsunami or what have you that happened to the ship that eventually sent it to the graveyard of the Pacific, or the north coast of Oregon. And I hear the clock ticking, but I think I'm done anyway. So
all right. Well, that works. That's a good tapering of your round 2 contribution. We appreciate that. So the round 2 tracker advances, and now we hear from your fellow historians. So, Melissa, is this all beeswax or is this all wackadoo?
Ooh, good question. I will say that the one thing that sparked my attention was the talk about candles, and how important they were. And why would they just leave, like, if they had to, in an emergency situation, if you needed that much beeswax, why would you abandon? That's the question I have.
Yeah.
No?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's fair. That's a fair point. Chris, are we done with the bees?
I picked up on the same thing, and thought to myself, all right, it's a Spanish galleon full of beeswax, and they leave. Who's minding it?
I will give you points though, because you did incorporate the narrative details into this particular thing, potentially proving me wrong that you are listening. So I give you points there, Chris. Well done. All right. Okay, that's the historian take. So there's only one way to finish up this round, and this is in fact with Chris, who will surely be listening to his own story. And we're going to give you 60 seconds on the clock. Your 60 seconds begins now.
All right. Well, to get exactly to the point that Melissa made at the end of my story in round 1, ocean swimming was still an emerging American hobby back in the early 1900s, and shark attacks were indeed unheard of. So many scientists at that point believed that sharks were shy, just another fish that swam around in the ocean, really posing no threat to swimmers, and certainly not powerful enough to kill a human being. But 5 days after Van Sant's story, the terror once again struck 45 miles north of Beach Haven as a gentleman named Charles Bruder swam out beyond the breakers of Spring Lake, New Jersey. He was a 27-year-old bellboy at another hotel called the Essex in Sussex, and he was taking his regular lunchtime swim when he was struck 130 yards from the shore. The shark bit off his left leg above the knee, and his right leg just below the knee. Lifeguards were able to pull Bruder to the shore as witnesses literally fainted from what they saw, but there was nothing they could do to save him, and we'll hear how this all comes together in round number 3.
All right. I don't like I would probably pass out. I'm not good with blood, but that's just me. Thank God I'm not a lifeguard. So, okay. Well, we've got our shark attack. It's are these sharks just shy, or do they need a hug? What do we need, Melissa?
Yeah, that's what I wrote down too, the word shy. I have a hard time believing that they just thought that these sharks were shy. Like, didn't people used to wear like teeth as a necklace going back like way, way back? Yeah, I think we're gonna need a bigger bite for me to believe this one. That's all.
Okay, all right. Okay, Billy, are you feeling like taking a dive into the story? What do you got?
If I was listening correctly, and I hope I was, I find it hilarious that Americans, and I'll use Jersey because we're in Jersey, so I'll use that accent. That in the 1900s, that they were like, you see that ocean over there? You know you could swim in it. That could be a popular thing we do, is swim in the oceans. From the 1900s to say, what if we went in? That'd be cool. That's crazy.
Well, we've claimed independence. That was in the 1700s, 1800s. There was a gold rush. Let's go swimming in the 1900s. It's the color of the century. All right, great. No, thank you for that input. And that, as you can see above my head, if you're watching, We have a full round 2. All the dots are lit up, which means we've heard from our historians for round 1 and round 2, which means there's only one round left to go. And let's get right to that. It's round number 3. It's round number 3 where the times are shorter and so is my temper. But I don't have a temper. Lucky for you. All right, so we've got only a mere 45 seconds on this clock. So this is about closing your stories and making us believe that your proposal for an actual historical fact or nugget is true. So we're going to start as we have in the other 2 rounds with you, Melissa. We're going to give you 45 seconds on the clock to find out how Operation Sunset concluded. Your time begins now.
So by 1973, the sun had set on Operation Sunset, and Dyson had a change of heart as well. After watching what happened in Latin America at the time, he was having some moral problems with what he was doing. Just being a spy in general is what he wrote was difficult for him. And so it was kind of the CIA pressured him a little bit to end his career, but he was also happy to end it. And after he resigned, there were multiple reports that he actually went to Mexico, and he went to the KGB kind of resident in Mexico and offered a bunch of information. And they said they were too skeptical. They said, no way. He went to Cuba, and they opened him with welcome arms. And up until 2009, when he died, he maintained that this didn't happen. But multiple sources said it did.
All right, there we go. A little over time, but not too bad. You kind of squeaked it in. We've got the end of the story, I feel. Did you guys feel like it was the end of the story, Billy?
Yeah, I don't love that she made her own pun. I think that's left for us, that the sun had set on. You're taking away from Chris. What is he going to say now?
That's good. I'm going to remove one rim shot.
Thank you. The other thing is just, I thought this was maybe real history, but then you said that he started having moral problems as a spy and he just couldn't do it anymore. That sounds like every spy movie, that's how it ends. They got to get out of the game. So I don't know. Maybe this is just a plot to some movie that I haven't watched. Maybe one of the 50.
All right. That's heavy. All right. Just giving the old B-movie Hollywood treatment. Chris?
Yeah, I also focused on that part about his moral problem with being a spy. And I'm sorry, but they know what they're getting into when they get into that business. So all of a sudden, you had a change of heart. I'm skeptical of that. I'll wait to hear Billy's round 3 story to find out which one I believe less.
Oh, well, okay, yeah, that's fair. So you're saying
I told you.
So Chris, you're postulating that the employee handbook for spy should have told them, and they should have just been cool with that. All
That's
right. I believe it. I assume there's a handbook, an employee manual. Okay. All right. So we've heard from Melissa. Now it's time to hear from Billy. And Billy, this is your lightning round, the 45 seconds where you're going to wrap up your story about beeswax and the Santa Cristo. Your time begins now.
Yes. So to tie a nice bow on the story, so hundreds of years of these beeswax washing up on shore, they finally were able to find the timber to trace it back to a ship, which is the Santo Cristo. They were able to determine, thanks to the Spain kept such great shipping records for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, that they were able to determine this was a ship built in Manila, the Philippines, which is the capital, I believe, and that it was indeed a ship that carried luxury goods such as Chinese silks and porcelains and stuff, and also the beeswax, which was used again for the Catholic churches. Yeah, that's really it. So I guess you could say it's a great story, and you can watch it on Disney Plus, I believe. I plugged it. I'm sorry.
I think do you get a commission on the subscriptions based on this show?
Oh,
okay.
boy. No, I don't.
Okay. All right. So all right. Good records on the shipping lanes from Spain. They have been a naval power for like most of the millennia. So, Melissa, what's your take?
Yeah, I think Billy was waxing eloquently there in that 45 seconds. But I worry though that you mentioned the candles again, and I'm like, could that be a tactic? Could it? That's all I'm saying.
Okay. All right. Chris, what's your thoughts on the beeswax?
Yeah, well, my ears perked up when he said, that the Spanish had kept hundreds of years of records, and they've had a lot of wars and a lot of fires like we have and other countries have had. So records probably get demolished during that time. But the part for me that just, when he said, silks, porcelain, and beeswax as all in the same category of luxury items. And I'm sorry, but beeswax can't hold a candle to silks or porcelain. So,
making your own evaluation of the goods values. Okay, I see. All right, no, that's your take. That's fair. That's your historical take on it. So, we're down to you, Chris. So now we're gonna hear your historical take, or rather, the last portion of it in our third round. So please tell us how the shark biting and the shy sharks get their closure. You have 45 seconds.
Okay. So protective nets were installed at beaches along the Jersey Shore and boats patrolled the waters. But on July 12th, just a week later, 25 miles north of Spring Lake, 11-year-old Lester Stillwell was killed while swimming along the Matawan Creek. A local tailor named Sidney Fisher dove into the water to retrieve Lester's body, and his leg was bitten. He died on shore. Only 30 minutes later, 12-year-old Joseph Dunn was bitten at the mouth of the Matawan Creek. He miraculously survived, but the shark was never caught. 60 years later, Peter Benchley's turned into a blockbuster movie, but the events along the Jersey Shore that summer of 1916 put sharks on the map as one of the most feared sea hazards in history now.
Wow, that's a lot of, we have had a deluge of names in this round. Thank you, Chris. So let's talk about the names and the bites. Melissa, what's your take on his last entry?
Yes, I'm gonna use Chris's game here and say, are you still well after listing all of that information?
Ouch.
And I think I'm done. Okay. I think I'm done.
All right, Billy. What do you think about the sharks?
Yes, it's sad how many people with the shark attacks, and it's nice that a lot of people were around to give them a hand, but I think they should have gave them a leg, because it seems like everyone lost their leg in the story.
That's good. Oh my God, I'm still confused if somebody was bitten in the mouth of the river or in the mouth of the face. Like that's. It was the third, but not in the mouth. They were bitten probably on the leg or something. Also, by the way, if your story is in fact true, which I know the truth it is, but I'm not going to reveal yet. But if Stillwell was bitten on July 12th, then this show recording on July 10th is so relevant. So honestly, that's a great job on you for relevancy. Thank you very much, Chris. We all aimed for that much calendar relevance in our stories. Okay, well, we've heard from the Historian Gallery, and we have, believe it or not, a full round tracker above me, which means we have heard everything that we're going to hear about these stories from our historians. But what's not done yet is we need to hear the deliberations and find out who everyone wants to make their official accusation about who is the bluff. So we're going to go around the whole horn here and get a take from all three of you who you think the bluff is. Melissa, you go first.
All right. So, I think Billy's story started out with a lot of references to a lot of different things, locations. We had movies, we had people. But at the end, the shipping records and all that, it didn't have the same sting that I was looking for with the beeswax story. So I think there's that. But with Chris's story, I gotta say that his story about the killer fish, I think he's guilty. Too many names. I don't buy that people were not at all scared of this fish with that many teeth. I mean, they had to have known, right? That's all.
Okay. All right. So your official accusation goes to Chris?
Yes.
All right. So we have a Chris vote. So now I'm going to go to Billy. Billy, who are you accusing to be the bluff?
Well, aside from stories, we know when Melissa wears a cardigan, she's probably lying.
I didn't know that was a tell. We've been doing stories for a year with her.
I was cold.
No, but I think Melissa's story, I don't know. There was a lot of, I feel like, loose ends and just kind of vague details.
Huh.
And Chris's story had a lot of details with vague information. It was just basically a long slew of people that got bit by sharks over the last 100 years. That's like history.
It was like reading Genesis, like shark be-bited this, be-bited that.
New Jersey, like New England, like I knew a guy that got just a lot of that. A guy that got bit by a shark. So, I don't know if any of that's true. So I'm gonna put it on Chris.
Okay, Billy is voting for Chris. All right, and then Chris, you get the last vote in here. Who are you going to accuse of being the bluff?
All right. Well, it's interesting. Billy's story about the Pacific Northwest being the graveyard of the Pacific. That to me, kind of raised a flag right away. With all the pirate activity that took place in the South Pacific, just the history, the long history of China and Japan, and that side of the Pacific, you would think that there's many more shipwrecks on that side, and then the whole. And I like how he conveniently at the end. He started his third round by saying, "I'm going to tie a nice bow to it." What a great bluffs technique to say, "I'm going to wrap this all up for you folks with a nice bow, and here's my truthful story." Classic bluffing technique. However, Melissa started off with, we heard all about, Dimitri with the great self-esteem, Dimitri Amanov, the microfilm. I was confused between microfilm and microfiche. She said microfilm. I guess microfiche was in Billy's story about the ship. And then the but where she lost me, she started off with the summer of '69, and we never heard about his first real six string. So I think that
oh my God,
I'm going with Melissa.
Chris votes Melissa.
Love the bluff.
Okay. All right. Well, the votes are in. We have Melissa votes for Chris. Billy also votes for Chris. So that's 2 marks against Chris. That's not a good look. And we have Chris voting for Melissa, which means that if Billy is the bluff, then he has won the game with no accusations against him. And conversely, if somebody else was the bluff, then which would be either Melissa or Chris, then there are votes against them. And that means those who made those accusations will be the winner. So it's time for me to get off this virtual stage and line you potential bluffers up and find out which one of you is in fact the bluff. Because I know the answer. Was it Melissa? Was your bluff Billy? Could it have been Chris? Hold your breath, folks. We're going to find out right now. Your bluff. This whole time it was Melissa! You almost got away with it. Almost. But not quite. You nearly got away with it. And Chris sniffed you out at the last minute. So, Chris, that means that you, in fact, have won the game!
What?
Because you were the only person who accused Melissa of being the bluff, which makes you the winner of our history bluffs. Congratulations. You get a prize. You get bragging rights for an entire week. And we will remember your name in perpetuity. Perpetuity? That's not even a word. Right. So let me go around before we close out this show. Chris, tell us a little bit more. So you're telling us that this is actually how shark bites on the Upper East Coast came to be, and how they learned how much of a danger it was.
Yes, it is true. It was mocked by Melissa during the story, but it was really true that they thought sharks were shy at the time. Probably because when they interviewed them, they couldn't look them right in the eye because sharks have their eyes going that way. But I couldn't resist that one. You could. But yeah, no, there was not a lot of record. As one of you pointed out, there probably had been a lot, people swimming before that, but there was definitely people swimming before that. But it wasn't. It was not as popular as it had become before the 1900s. So then obviously
Okay.
more people in the water means more shark attacks, and it became kind of a scary thing.
Wow. Okay. No, thank you for that. That's something to learn. Thank you for that education. Billy, your story was true. You are telling us that beeswax was as highly valued of a commodity as the Chinese silks and other. I mean, tell us more. So where did that all come from?
Yeah. Well, there were certain, if there wasn't honeybees that were native to your wherever you may be, then beeswax would be a high commodity. America's being one of them. Honeybees, I guess, were not indigenous to America, as many things weren't, because Europe brought most of that stuff over.
Thanks, Europe.
Including smallpox.
Oh.
So, yeah, no, I thought it was fascinating. The Goonies thing, that was true. Spielberg it's deemed that he was inspired by the graveyard of the Pacific, because there are a lot of shipwrecks
Yeah.
that wash up on shore there.
Wow.
But what I found fascinating about the story is just for years they've been finding these just hunks of beeswax that wash up on the shore, which is probably like, what the heck is this?
Unbelievable.
If just a year ago or 2022, 2 years ago, oh my God, they started finding the wood from the ship, so they got to like really, pinpoint where the heck did all this come from. So
wow, that is really cool. History just washing up on the shore like that.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. All right, and finally we get to you, Melissa. You tried to con us into thinking that Operation Sunset was a thing. Where did this come from?
I don't know. I had read something about a spy who was not named William Dyson, was named something. I went down a rabbit trail of reading about spies. And so I was like, this is kind of interesting, and kind of meshed a bunch of things together. There was loosely based on, there was a spy that like had a change of heart at the end of his life. And so that part I kind of like modeled a little bit, but it was not as dramatic. But yeah, I just thought, I should write a spy story. That sounds fun.
You even put microfilm in there, which is just perfect. I mean, it's right out of the pages. It sounded very believable, but I knew it was a bluff the whole time. I was the only one. Well, great job on the bluffing, and this is what we do every week. So please, if you're tuning in now, tune in again. You can learn 2 more things and be hoodwinked once, maybe. So again, thank you so much, historians. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Billy. And thank you, Chris. We are here every single week. You can catch us live, or you can catch us on reruns on YouTube and Twitch where we broadcast, or catch us on your podcast where you get them. See you next time.